Imagine this scene for a moment. You've got an entire city's population, men, women, children, standing in a public square. They aren't there for a concert, they aren't there for a protest, and they aren't there for a market day. They are standing there from sunrise until noon, just listening to someone read a book.
6 hours. Standing. That is an attention span that, frankly, the modern world has completely lost.
Absolutely. If I have to listen to a voice note longer than 2 minutes, I'm checking out. But this moment in history, recorded in the book of Nehemiah, marks a massive pivot point. We've spent so much time talking about the physical rebuilding of Jerusalem, the walls, the gates, the mortar. But today we are looking at chapters 8 through 10. The hardware is built. Now they need to install the software.
That is a perfect metaphor. Nehemiah, the governor, has secured the perimeter. But a secure city with a corrupt or empty soul is just a prison. So the focus shifts from Nehemiah the builder to Ezra the scribe. And this gathering at the water gate isn't just a reading, it's a reintroduction to who they are.
So Ezra brings out the book of the law of Moses. He stands on this high wooden platform, basically a pulpit built just for this, and he opens the book. And the reaction is visceral. The text says the moment he opened it, everyone stood up.
It's an act of reverence, but also of anticipation. You have to remember, these people have been in exile. They've been scattered. Many of them probably haven't heard these laws read clearly in their native tongue, or at least not in this context of freedom, for generations. And as the Levites move through the crowd explaining the text, translating the ancient Hebrew into a language the common people could grasp, something heavy happens. The people start weeping.
Right? And that's the reaction that fascinates me. Usually, when you finally finish a massive construction project like the wall, you pop the champagne. You celebrate. But here, the words of the law hit them like a truck. They're mourning. Why the sudden grief?
It's the shock of self-awareness. Think of it like looking in a high-definition mirror after years of avoiding your reflection. As they heard the standards of the law, how they were supposed to treat each other, how they were supposed to worship, how they were supposed to live, they realized the massive gap between that ideal and their reality. They realized that while the wall was fixed, their culture was broken. The weeping was a collective realization of failure.
It's a heavy moment. But then the leadership, Nehemiah, Ezra, and the Levites do something completely counterintuitive. They essentially tell everyone to dry their eyes. They say, stop crying, go eat the fat, drink the sweet wine, and send food to those who have nothing.
Exactly. It's one of the most profound theological pivots in the text. They say, the joy of the Lord is your strength. They are teaching the people that the purpose of the law isn't to crush them with guilt. It's to guide them into life. If they stay in that state of despair, they have no strength to move forward. Holiness, in this context, wasn't about being miserable. It was about celebration. It was a holy day, so mourning was actually inappropriate.
I love that phrase. The joy of the Lord is your strength. It suggests that resilience comes from celebration, not just grit. And speaking of celebration, this leads directly into this fascinating revival of an ancient festival. They realize the text commands them to live in, well, basically in tents.
The Feast of Tabernacles, or booths. Yes, it's essentially a national camping trip. They go out to the hills, gather olive branches, myrtle, palm branches, and they build these temporary shelters on their roofs and in their courtyards.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare, but also incredibly fun.
It was. But the symbolism is deep. They were reenacting the wilderness wanderings of their ancestors. It was a physical way of remembering. We are the people who lived in tents, dependent entirely on God for food and water. By leaving their solid houses and sleeping under branches, they were resetting their perspective. They were humbling themselves, but doing it with very great gladness, as the text says.
So they go from weeping to feasting, then to camping. But then in chapter 9, the tone shifts again. The party ends, and they gather for a solemn assembly. And this is where we get this incredibly long, detailed prayer. It takes up almost the whole chapter.
This prayer is a masterpiece of historical memory. It's not just a "God, please help us" prayer. It's a recitation of their entire national resume. They start at creation, move to Abraham, the Exodus, the Red Sea, the manna in the desert, the conquest of the land.
It reads like a roller coaster. God does something amazing, the people are grateful, then they get comfortable and rebel. God disciplines them, they cry out, God saves them. Rinse and repeat.
Precisely. It exposes the cycle of human nature. The prayer highlights a specific pattern. They ate, were filled, became fat, and delighted themselves. Nevertheless, they were disobedient. Comfort led to amnesia. When life got easy, they forgot the source. The prayer is brutally honest about this. It admits, "You have been just in all that has come upon us, for you have dealt truly, but we have done wickedly."
That's a rare admission for a political body, isn't it? Taking full responsibility without blaming the circumstances or the enemies.
It is. They acknowledge that their current situation, being servants in their own land, paying taxes to foreign kings, is a direct result of their own spiritual amnesia. They aren't playing the victim card. They are owning their history. And that ownership is the only way they can move to the next step, which is chapter 10.
The sealed document. This is where the rubber meets the road. They don't just say a prayer and go home, they write up a contract.
This is the critical difference between an emotional experience and a transformational one. Emotion evaporates. A contract remains. Chapter 10 is a list of signatures, leaders, Levites, priests, putting their names on a binding agreement to keep the law.
And the specifics of this contract are interesting. They aren't vague promises, like we will be better people. They are incredibly specific. They talk about intermarriage, they talk about the Sabbath, and they talk a lot about money and supplies.
It's incredibly practical. They promise not to buy grain on the Sabbath, even if the locals bring it to sell. That's an economic hit. They are choosing loss of profit over violation of principle. And then, the wood offering.
The wood offering?
It sounds mundane, doesn't it? But think about it. The altar fire needs to burn constantly. That requires a massive supply chain of fuel. They set up a system to cast lots to determine which families bring the wood at which times. It's logistics. They are realizing that spiritual life requires physical infrastructure. You can't have a burning altar if nobody chops the wood.
That's a great point. We often separate the spiritual from the logistical, but here they are intertwined. They also commit to the first fruits, giving the best of their crops, their dough, their wine to the storehouse.
And the summary line of the whole covenant is hauntingly beautiful. "We will not neglect the house of our God." That is the bottom line. For generations, they had neglected it. Not just the building, but the system of worship, the support for the Levites, the rhythm of the Sabbath. This contract was a line in the sand. They were saying, "We are going to fund this, we are going to staff this, and we are going to prioritize this."
It really emphasizes that revival isn't just about a feeling in your heart. It's about what you do with your calendar and your wallet.
Exactly. You can cry at the reading of the law all you want, but if you don't stop buying grain on the Sabbath and you don't bring the wood for the fire, the tears mean nothing. Nehemiah is showing us that true restoration is systemic. It changes the way the community operates economically and socially.
It's a powerful arc. They started with the intellectual, understanding the text. They moved to the emotional, grief, and then joy. Then to the historical, confessing their past, and finally the volitional, making a hard choice to sign a contract.
It is the complete package of human commitment. And notice the unity. It wasn't just the priests. The text lists the chiefs of the people and then says the rest of the people, their wives, their sons, and their daughters, everyone who had knowledge and understanding. This was a societal reset.
It makes you wonder, though. We know the rest of the history. We know that even with a signed contract, staying faithful is a struggle. Humans are still humans.
That is the lingering tension. A signed paper is powerful, but it doesn't cure the human heart of its tendency to wander. However, what they built here, this structure of accountability, this rhythm of Sabbath and sacrifice, it creates guardrails. It makes it harder to drift away unnoticed. They didn't just hope for faithfulness, they engineered a society that supported it.
Engineered faithfulness. I like that. It challenges the idea that spirituality is just spontaneous. Sometimes you need to cast lots for the wood offering just to keep the fire alive.
Precisely. The fire doesn't burn on its own.
Well, that is a profound place to leave it. We've gone from the Watergate to the signing of the covenant. It's a reminder that rebuilding the walls is only the beginning. The real work happens inside. Thank you for walking us through this incredible moment in history.
It was a pleasure. It's a story that never gets old.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. Maybe take a moment today to think about what wood you need to bring to keep your own fire burning. See you next time.
If you have been blessed by this, please like, subscribe, and share this joy with others. God bless.